Hi, this is Jeremy with Fundamental Tennis. If you enjoy this video, please make sure to give me a like, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos, and subscribe. Hit the ball at the apex of your toss. Throw your front hip into the court on your serve. Take small steps when moving to the ball. If any of these phrases sound familiar, then you're going to want to check out this video, as I'm going to dispel these common myths and why they are not accurate. I'm going to tell you what you should do instead. One of these myths may be holding you back from getting to the next level, so stay tuned. The first myth I want to talk about is throwing your front hip into the court when serving. So that would look something like this. As a righty, my left hip is a bit over the baseline during my load or during my knee bend. Now, the issue with the coaching phrase, very commonly taught to throw the front hip out or something along those lines, the issue with trying to throw your front hip out is you're much more likely to get injured, and by the way, it's certainly not going to give you that power that you're looking for. So there are some pros who have their front hip over the baseline. Kevin Anderson is a good example. However, pros like Kevin Anderson, pros that have their front hip out, pros that know how to serve well, they stick their front hip out, but they're not trying to stick their front hip out. They load properly, and the loading, their knee bend, is what causes their front hip to go over the baseline. So let me explain the load. I'm about to show you what may cause your front hip to go forward a little bit. This is a healthy way to get the front hip forward. Once again, you do not want to think just throw your front hip forward, because that's much more likely to cause injury. So what we want to do that may bring the front hip forward is during the load or during the knee bend, we want to twist our hips, or I should say turn our hips away from the net, as you can see here. Now notice my weight is primarily on my back leg, my right leg as a righty. I'm loading into my right hip. So turning away from the net and loading back and down into my right leg or my back leg is what may cause the front hip to go out towards our target or over the baseline. So once again, you do not want to simply think throw your front hip out. As you can see, this looks very awkward. In fact, when I did some serves showing what not to do, and that I simply just thought to throw my front hip out as opposed to load properly, I felt pain in my left hip just from doing about 10 serves that way. So it's definitely not going to work during a match. If you don't have problems with that hip, I think you will eventually. In fact, there's a lot of pros, especially in the WTA Tour, who have some tape here because they have been taught to throw the front hip out. Now, I don't think their coaches right now are saying that, but maybe somebody in the past. So what we'd like to do here, again, one more time, is turn the hips away from the net, load back and down on that back hip. We do not want to think to throw the front hip out. Loading properly is going to give you more power, that effortless power that you're looking for. In fact, there's a video I did about the serve. I said the biggest power source on the serve comes from how fast you can load, or I should say, bring this hip up and forward from that loaded position. But if you don't load properly, then that hip is not going to fire very fast. So here you'll see my left hip go above the baseline when I'm at the bottom of my knee bend. Usually my left hip doesn't go out that much, but because I loaded on my right leg more so than I usually do, I had quite a bit more of that front hip poking out. But again, I'm not trying to throw my front hip forward. It's just a natural result of loading properly. So focus on the load, and then if the hip goes out, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But I really felt like I was more explosive. I got higher off the ground just by exaggerating that load. So I improved my serve in this video myself. The next myth is about footwork. And it's commonly taught that you should take small steps when moving to the ball. The problem with small steps is you're going to get there much later than if you ran the same speed but with large steps. Now, there is a time and place for small steps. Small steps are adjusting steps, and they are used to adjust. For example, to adjust to a bad bounce, or maybe the wind picked up, or maybe you've misjudged that ball that you're receiving. That's a time when you may take a small step because you have an error in moving to that ball. Once again, as I said, maybe there's a bad bounce or something like that. But in general, we want to take large steps to the ball, because if I was running in a race against you and we run the same speed, however you take small steps and I take large steps, I'm going to get to the finish line much faster because I'm taking large steps, which are faster and more efficient. Think about Usain Bolt. He does not take very small, choppy steps. He takes large steps because it's faster. In tennis, if you can get to the ball early rather than getting to that ball you're receiving late, then you're going to have a lot more options and be able to be on offense more often and get you out of defensive situations. So make sure that you do not take small steps unless you need to, again, if there's an error in judging the ball that you're receiving. Notice my large steps. There's no wasted movement. This is something you see on TV all the time. They usually do not take small steps, especially when they don't have time. You certainly will not see the pros take any small steps at all. When I purposely took small steps, it felt incredibly awkward and slow. I think you'll be amazed how much court you can cover just by having better footwork. Notice how I'm getting to the deuce alley from the ad side in only 2 to 3 steps. This footwork can make a slow person pretty fast. The last myth is about making contact at the apex of your serve toss. The problem with making contact at the top of the toss is it simply doesn't give you enough time to execute an efficient service motion. What I mean by that is, if I were to hit the ball at the top of my serve toss, I would not have time to load my lower body with a knee bend, rotating my hips, loading on the back foot. I'm not going to have time to get into these key serve positions because my toss is too low to have time to get into those positions. So the key is to toss the ball high enough so you have time to load properly, so you can then unload and transfer that energy that you've stored into the ball to create effortless power. Once again, if you hit at the top of the toss, you will not have time to get into these key serve positions, and you certainly won't reach anywhere near your serve potential. In fact, there's not one current tennis professional who hits the ball on their serve at the top of the toss. There's a couple who come very close. That is Dolgopolov, I forgot his first name, and also Sam Groth. Both players are quite good at serving, but again, there's not one player who hits the ball at the top of the toss. Actually, there have been recent studies that show that all of the greatest servers of today make contact on their serve when the ball has already dropped between 10 inches and 3 feet. And this is, again, because they need time to execute their load. They need time to get in these key positions on the serve. Tossing the ball, or I should say hitting the ball at the top of the toss, does not give you enough time to hit your best serve. So here is my natural service motion. My ball toss drops about 1 to 2 feet prior to the eventual contact. Right here you can see a great load because my toss is high enough to allow myself to have time to do that load. Here, on the other hand, is a very low toss. I purposely toss only so that I get to the apex at contact. You can see I had to skip most of my load. Most of what creates the power is that load. So here again is my natural service motion in which the ball toss has dropped at least a foot to 1.5 feet. This whole deal about the wind affects your ball toss is completely overrated. I've seen studies on this, and I've tried to find these exact numbers to show y'all, but I couldn't find it. I certainly will talk about in a future video if I do find it. And here, once again, I have time to load. I can accelerate later in the swing as opposed to too early because my ball toss is high enough. I want to thank you so much for watching my videos. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for the likes. Thank you so much for the support. Before I started doing these tennis videos, I could have never imagined that I would be doing videos. I would have never imagined I'd be in front of a camera. I've never been comfortable in front of a camera. In fact, I wasn't comfortable in front of a camera in these tennis videos until several months after I started these videos. And the first 8 months or so of doing my tennis videos, I got about 900 subscribers, And in the last 3 weeks, I've gotten 1,000 more subscribers. So I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much. And it really makes me feel good that I feel like I'm helping those of you who are watching. I'm helping you become a better tennis player. I'm helping you enjoy the game more. So once again, thank you for the support. And if you haven't subscribed already and you thought this video was helpful, please subscribe. And next week I will do a new video, as I always do. My videos come out every Sunday, and I think next week will be another good one. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I will think hard about it and make sure I deliver something that you guys will really enjoy.